Brother refused to hire me at his company. Despite our 50-50 deal for my time and money, my parents backed him up. So I started my own company. Now his is under tax evasion investigation and they're demanding I bail him out. Hey Reddit, grab your popcorn because this is about to be a wild ride. I'm 31M, and I just got off the phone with my parents, who are currently having a full-blown meltdown because my golden child brother's company is imploding. And apparently I'm the beer sigh for not swooping in to save the day. So buckle up because this story's got layers. Let me set the scene. I'm Marcus. I work in software development, specifically back-end infrastructure and database management. Not the sexy startup stuff you see on TechCrunch. I'm talking the boring but essential that keeps everything running. Basically the plumbing of the internet. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, started right out of college. My brother Ethan, 28M, is 3 years younger than me. And for as long as I can remember, he's been the favorite. Like, not even subtle favoritism. The kind of favoritism where my parents would literally forget my birthday, but throw Ethan a surprise party for getting a B+ in chemistry. I'm talking let's mortgage the house to send Ethan to his dream college level favoritism, while I had to take out student loans because it builds character. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Did my homework without being asked, got good grades, worked part-time jobs, never got in trouble. Ethan? He failed his driver's test 3 times, got suspended twice in high school for vaping in the bathroom, and barely scraped through college in 6 years with a communications degree he never used. But somehow he was still the golden boy. Mom used to say things like, Ethan's got charisma, or Ethan's a people person. Translation: your brother is charming enough that we'll overlook the fact that he's basically useless. Meanwhile, I was getting lectures about being too serious and needing to lighten up, because I had the audacity to, have ambitions. The double standards were insane.
I still remember one Thanksgiving when I was 17. I had just gotten accepted to UT Austin with a partial scholarship, something I worked my ass off for.
I brought it up at dinner thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. Dad barely looked up from his turkey. That's good, son. Pass the stuffing. 5 minutes later, Ethan announces he made varsity backup quarterback. Not even the starting position, backup. They literally stopped eating to celebrate. Mom started crying. Dad called his brother to brag. They bought Ethan a new jersey and took him to Topgolf the next day. My college acceptance? Got me a fridge magnet and a try not to party too much. After college, I moved to Austin and landed a solid job at a mid-sized tech company called Dataflow Solutions. Nothing fancy, but the pay was decent. Started at $62,000, and the work was interesting. Real infrastructure challenges, scaling databases, optimizing query performance, that actually mattered. I was building real skills while Ethan was back home trying to figure out what a W-2 was. I saved aggressively because I had this dream of eventually starting my own consulting firm. I lived in a crappy studio apartment in South Austin where the AC barely worked, and I could hear my neighbor's entire life through the walls. I drove a 2003 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles that burned oil like it was going out of style. Ate ramen 4 nights a week, meal prepped chicken and rice for the other 3. Every dollar I didn't need for survival went straight into savings. My coworkers thought I was nuts. They'd invite me out for happy hour, and I'd nurse 1 beer for 2 hours, then head home. Weekends weren't for brunch or day drinking. They were for side projects and learning new frameworks. I had a plan, and the plan required discipline. Meanwhile, Ethan was doing his thing, which is to say, failing spectacularly at everything he touched. After college, he moved to Denver because his girlfriend at the time went to grad school there. That relationship lasted about 6 months. The staying in Denver lasted longer, mostly because he couldn't afford to move back. He tried to start a craft beer subscription box called Hop Drop in 2017, spent 3 months designing a logo and building hype on Instagram. Never actually shipped a single box. Turns out sourcing craft beer, handling licensing, and managing logistics is hard when you're too busy taking photos of yourself drinking said beer. Then came the streetwear brand, Mile High Threads. He bought like $8,000 worth of inventory from some manufacturer in China. Half of it was misspelled. Literal bootleg quality where Supreme was spelled Supreme. Tried to sell it anyway. Got a cease and desist from the actual brands. Lost all his money and had to borrow rent from my parents for 3 months straight. He even went through this whole influencer phase where he was convinced he'd make it as a social media motivational guru. I'm talking those cringy rise and grind videos, him walking around downtown Denver in a suit, talking about hustle culture and discipline. Peak content was him filming himself making coffee at 6 a.m., saying stuff like, if you want to succeed, you've got to start before everyone else wakes up. This from a guy who couldn't hold a retail job for more than 4 months. His most viewed video got 847 views, and I'm pretty sure 300 of those were from family members he guilt-tripped into watching. But here's where things get interesting. About 4 years ago, Ethan calls me out of nowhere. We hadn't talked much, maybe once every couple of months, usually when he needed something. But this time, his tone was different. Serious, focused. Marcus, I need to run something by you. Got an hour? We met up when I flew back to Denver for a work conference. He showed up on time, first red flag. Something was different. He came in with an actual business plan, printed and bound, not some half-assed Google Doc. A real plan with market research, financial projections, competitive analysis, the works. He'd been working at this marketing agency called Elevate Digital for about 18 months, the first job he'd held for longer than 6 months. Started as basically a glorified admin, but worked his way up to account coordinator. And in that time, he'd noticed something. All these mid-sized B2B companies, manufacturing, software, logistics, whatever, they all need good marketing, he explained. But the big agencies don't want to touch them because their budgets are too small. And the small agencies don't have the expertise to do it right. There's this massive gap in the market. He pulled out his research. He'd talked to around 30 potential clients and showed me the math. These companies were spending money on marketing but not getting good results. They were underserved, and they knew it. Someone who comes in with actual B2B expertise and treats them like real clients, not second-tier accounts, could clean up, he said. I'll admit, I was impressed. This was the first time in Ethan's life he'd shown any real initiative or business sense. He'd done actual work, real research. He'd thought through the problems. So what do you need? I asked. Money and help, he said, sliding a spreadsheet across the table. Need $100,000 to get started. Office space, equipment, initial hires, marketing budget, legal fees, runway for the first 6 months. I've got 25 saved up. Need a partner for the rest. $25,000? I asked, shocked. You saved $25,000? He nodded, proud. Been living with 2 roommates in a shitty apartment and eating basically nothing but eggs and rice for a year and a half. Every dollar from my paycheck went to savings. For the first time ever, he actually looked proud of himself. I'm serious about this, Marcus. This isn't another hop drop. This is real. He kept going. But I don't just need the money. I need you. I can do sales, I can manage clients, I'm good at the relationship stuff. But I don't know about operations. I don't know how to build systems or manage projects or set up the infrastructure that makes a company actually run. You do. I need your expertise as much as I need your money. We talked for 3 hours. He showed me letters of intent from potential clients. Showed me his financial modeling, which surprisingly was actually solid. Showed me the team he wanted to hire and why. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't bullshitting. He'd found something real, and he was ready to work for it. Here's where I made my first mistake. I believed him. No, scratch that. My first mistake was not getting everything in writing. We shook hands on a deal. I'd invest $75,000, literally every penny I'd saved over 6 years. And I'd spend my nights and weekends helping him build out all the operational systems. The website, the project management infrastructure, everything tech-related. In exchange, once the company was profitable, we'd be 50-50 partners. We're brothers, Ethan said, looking me dead in the eye. I'm not going to screw you over. This is our company. I flew back to Austin feeling good. Scared, sure. I was about to dump my entire life savings into my screw-up brother's business, but still good. Maybe this was it. Maybe Ethan had finally grown up. Maybe we'd actually build something together. I wired him the money that week and all $75,000, watched my savings account drop to basically nothing, and tried not to have a panic attack. The first few months were chaos. Ethan found office space, a small suite in a decent building. Nothing fancy but professional. He hired his first 2 employees, both junior level but hungry. He hired 1 copywriter and 1 designer. Ethan would handle strategy and account management, and they'd take care of execution. Meanwhile, I was building everything else. The project management system, which I decided to build custom instead of using something off the shelf, because Ethan's needs were specific. The client database with full CRM integration. The automated reporting system so clients could see exactly what they were paying for. The workflow automations that let 3 people do the work of 6. Every evening after my day job, I'd put in another 4 to 6 hours. Weekends? All in, usually 10 to 12-hour days. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, was not thrilled. "You're basically working 2 full-time jobs," she said. "And one of them you're not even getting paid for." "It's an investment," I told her. "Once the company's profitable, I'll own half of it." "You got that in writing?" she asked. "It's my brother. We don't need a contract." She looked at me like I was an idiot. Turns out, she was right. Those first 12 months were brutal. I'm talking showing up to my day job on 4 hours of sleep and 3 cups of coffee, missing social events because I had to help Ethan train new hires on the systems, canceling weekend plans because there was some crisis with the website or the databases. But I told myself it was worth it. The company was growing. Ethan landed his first 3 clients within 2 months. They weren't huge, $3,000 to $5,000 monthly retainers, but it was real money. By month 6, they had 7 clients and $40,000 in monthly recurring revenue, MRR. By month 12, 15 clients and $85,000 MRR. The revenue was good, but the margins were tight. Ethan was reinvesting everything, hiring more people, upgrading the office, buying better equipment. I kept asking when we'd formalize the partnership agreement, and he kept saying soon. First, it was, let's get through the first year. Then, let's get to $1 million in revenue. Then, let's wait until we're consistently profitable. Always a moving target. Year 2, things really took off. Ethan turned out to be genuinely good at sales. That charm that had gotten him through life without consequences, turns out it's actually useful when you're trying to win clients. He'd take prospects out for drinks, talk about his vision, make them feel like they were getting in on something special. And because I'd built such solid operational systems, he could actually deliver on those promises. They hit $2 million in revenue that year, grew to 15 employees, moved into a bigger office in downtown Denver, exposed brick, ping pong table, all that startup. Ethan loved. He started posting on LinkedIn about building something special and the entrepreneurial journey. Started wearing expensive suits and driving a leased BMW. Meanwhile, I was still in my shitty Honda, still working 2 jobs, still waiting for my equity stake to materialize. That's when I started pushing harder about the partnership. I sent Ethan a detailed email laying out everything I'd contributed, the initial $75,000. Plus what I calculated as about 3,000 hours of labor over 2 years, work that would have easily gone for $100 an hour in the open market. All in all, $375,000 in total contribution. His response came a week later, short, dismissive. "Hey bro, appreciate everything you've done. Let's plan to discuss the partnership structure when I'm back from this client trip to Chicago. Maybe next month." Next month came and went. No discussion. I tried calling. Text went unanswered. Emails got shorter. "Super busy. We'll talk soon." Finally, I'd had enough. I took a personal day from work, drove 4 hours to Denver, and showed up at his office unannounced. Walked past the receptionist, some young girl who had no idea who I was, despite the fact that I'd literally built the system she used to check in visitors, and straight into Ethan's office. He was in a meeting with 2 employees, reviewing campaign metrics on his giant monitor. Looked up, surprised, and not exactly happy to see me. "Marcus, hey, guys, can you give us a minute?" The employees left, giving me weird looks. Once the door closed, I didn't waste time. "We need to talk about the partnership. Like right now." He leaned back in his expensive chair, one of those $1,200 ergonomic things, and sighed. "I was going to call you this week. You've been saying that for 6 months. Things have been crazy. We're scaling fast. Cut the bro out, Ethan. Are we partners or not?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked over to the window, and turned his back to me. "I've been talking to my lawyer and my accountant," he said finally. "They're advising me that bringing on a partner at this stage would complicate the cap table." I just stared at him. "I'm not a partner?" I asked. "I'm the partner. We had a deal." He turned around and his face was different, harder. "We had a conversation, Marcus." Nothing was ever formalized. And honestly, my advisors are right. The company's doing well. Adding a partner now, especially one who's not involved day to day, doesn't make business sense. My stomach dropped. Not involved day to day? I built your entire operational infrastructure. I trained your staff. I spent 2 years, and I appreciate that, he interrupted. Really, but that was then. The company's evolved. We've got our own IT guy now. We've hired operations people. Honestly, bro, we've kind of outgrown what you built. The audacity. I'd automated 90% of their workflow. I'd built the systems that let his 15 employees do the work of 30. And now he was saying they'd outgrown me? You owe me $75,000 minimum. I'll pay you back, he said quickly. With interest, 5% annually compounded. You'll get it all back. What about the equity? That's not happening. We shook hands on 50-50. Yeah, well, he shrugged. I'm the CEO. I make the business decisions. And my decision is no equity partners. If you want to push this, I guess you could try suing me. But you'll spend more on lawyers than you'd recover. So, your call. I stood there, literally shaking with rage. My little brother, the guy I'd bailed out his entire life, was openly screwing me over. And he was doing it with this smug confidence like he'd already gotten away with it. I'll hire you as a consultant going forward, he offered like he was doing me a favor. $50 an hour for any work you do. That's fair, right? Plus, I'll start paying back the $75K. $500 a month sound good? $50 an hour. $500 a month on a $75,000 debt. At that rate, it would take him 12.5 years to pay me back, assuming he never missed a payment, which we both knew he would. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. You're really doing this? It's business, Marcus. It's theft. It's a business decision. I walked toward the door, then stopped. You know what? Keep the money. Consider it a gift. But we're done. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't ask me for art ever again. Marcus, come on. Get now, Ethan. I slammed his office door so hard the frosted glass rattled. Walked out past all his employees, who were definitely listening to every word, got in my car and drove straight back to Austin, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. That 4-hour drive was dark, real dark. I kept replaying every moment of the past 2 years. Every late night I'd canceled plans to help him. Every weekend I'd spent training his people. Every system I'd built that he was now claiming they'd outgrown. I thought about all the times I defended him to Sarah when she'd warned me this would happen. All the times I'd told myself he was different now, mature, ready to be a real adult. What a car joke. Made it back to Austin around 10 p.m. Sarah took one look at my face and knew. He screwed you. I just nodded. Are you going to sue him? Already did the math on the drive. Legal fees would eat up most of what I'd recover, and it would take years. Plus, it's family, and my parents would never forgive me. She was quiet for a minute. You need to call them. Tell them what he did. So I did. Called my parents that night. Told them everything. The handshake deal, the 2 years of work, Ethan's refusal to honor any of it. My mom's response? Marcus, you can't expect Ethan to just give you half his company. I invested $75,000. And he said he'll pay you back. That seems fair. What about the 2 years of labor? You chose to help your brother. That's what family does. You can't put a price tag on family. I nearly threw my phone through the wall. Did Ethan tell you he was planning this? Silence. The kind of silence that answers the question. Then my dad got on the line. Son, we discussed this with Ethan a few months ago. He was worried about the partnership situation and asked our advice. We agreed that it didn't make sense to give away half the company when he's the one running it day to day. You knew, I said. You knew he was planning to screw me, and you told him it was okay. We told him to make the best business decision, Dad said. That's what any parent would do. Any parent would tell their son to honor his agreement. You don't have experience running a company, Marcus. Ethan does now. It's his baby. You have your own career. This wasn't ever really meant to be yours. My mom jumped back in. We just want you boys to get along. Maybe you're being a little unreasonable expecting so much when Ethan's done all the hard work. I hung up. Didn't yell, didn't argue, just ended the call and sat there in my apartment staring at nothing. Sarah was watching me from the couch. They took his side. They always take his side. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, So, what are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? I just lost $75,000 in 2 years of my life. My own brother had stolen from me. My parents had backed him up. I had every right to be destroyed by this. Instead, I got pissed. Really, really pissed. I'm going to beat him at his own game. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning I know everything about his business. I know where the inefficiencies are. I know what the clients actually need. I know how to do what he does but better. If he wants to play this game, let's play. She smiled. You're starting a competitor. Damn right I am. I spent the next 2 weeks in full planning mode. Called every contact I'd made while helping Ethan, and there were a lot. Project managers I'd trained, developers I'd worked with, even some of his clients I'd gotten friendly with during implementation calls. I let them know I was starting a consulting firm focused on operational infrastructure for marketing agencies. The response shocked me. Everyone had the same story. Ethan's agency did good creative work, but the operations were a mess. Projects always over budget, deadlines constantly missed, communication breakdowns everywhere, all the stuff I'd tried to fix before he froze me out. Apparently, once I stopped being actively involved, things started falling apart. Within 3 weeks, I had my first 2 clients. Small agencies, $5,000 to $8,000 contracts to overhaul their operations. Nothing huge, but it was proof of concept. Then I made my first hire. Remember that IT guy Ethan said they'd brought on to replace my systems? Found him on LinkedIn. His name was Derek. He'd been working at Ethan's company for about 8 months and was already fed up. Met him for coffee. Let me guess, I said. Ethan hired you to maintain the systems I built, but he doesn't want to actually invest in upgrading anything. Derek laughed. Dude, he literally asked me to add new features to your database without increasing the server budget. Said we needed to optimize more. I tried explaining that's not how it works, and he told me I wasn't being creative enough. Want to work for someone who actually understands technology? He was at my office 2 weeks later. The next 9 months were a blur. I was working like a madman, still at my day job during regular hours, building my company every evening and weekend. But this time it was different. This time I owned it. Every client, every system, every relationship, mine. My business model was simple. I focused on the unsexy back-end stuff Ethan thought wasn't important. Project management systems, client databases, reporting automation, workflow optimization. The infrastructure that actually makes agencies work. Turns out there's a huge market for that. Agencies are full of creative people who hate administrative work. They need someone to come in and build the systems that let them focus on what they're good at, and they're more than willing to pay for it. By month 6, I'd brought on 3 more employees, all people I'd poached from other agencies, some even from Ethan's company. By month 9, I hit $500,000 in revenue. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Ethan's company was struggling. Nothing catastrophic, but growth had stalled. Revenue was flat. A few clients had left. Employee turnover was high. Turns out, when your operations are held together with duct tape and hope, eventually it falls apart. I didn't reach out, didn't gloat, just kept building. My first major breakthrough came about a year in. Landed a contract with a 50-person agency called Momentum Creative that was drowning in operational chaos. Their project completion rate was 62%. They were hemorrhaging money on projects that ran over budget. Client satisfaction was tanking. So I did a complete overhaul of their systems, built them a custom project management platform, integrated it with their CRM, automated their reporting and billing, created workflow templates for their most common project types, trained their staff on the new systems. 4 months later, their on-time completion rate was 94%. Average project profitability was up 40%. Client retention went from 71% to 91%. The CEO sent me a bottle of expensive scotch with a note. You saved our company. Thank you. More importantly, that CEO referred me to 3 other agencies. Those agencies referred me to 5 more. Suddenly, I had more work than I could handle. By year 2, I hired a head of sales to help me scale. Opened a real office in downtown Austin instead of working from my apartment. Brought my team up to 8 people. And then it happened, and I hit 7 figures in revenue. The moment I saw that number, $1,000 in annual revenue, I just sat back in my chair and smiled. I'd done it. Not just recovered from Ethan's betrayal, I'd exceeded it. Meanwhile, Ethan's company was in freefall. Heard from a former employee that they'd lost their 3 biggest clients in a single month. Payroll was being made late. Ethan had to lay off 5 people. The fancy office got downgraded to a smaller space. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I felt nothing. I was too busy building something real to care about Ethan's failures. Then, last week, my phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Monday. It was my mom, crying. "Marcus, we need your help." I was half asleep, confused. "What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "It's Ethan's company. The IRS is investigating them for tax evasion. They've frozen all his accounts. He might go to jail." That woke me up fast. "What?" Over the next few hours, I got the full story from various frantic family members. Turns out Ethan had been getting creative with his accounting, hiding expenses to make his profit margins look better, misreporting income to reduce tax liability, claiming personal expenses as business deductions. His BMW lease, his downtown apartment, even a vacation to Cancun got written off as a business development trip. Classic amateur hour tax fraud, the kind where you think you're being clever, but really you're just leaving a paper trail a blind forensic accountant could follow. The IRS had launched an investigation 3 months ago after one of his former employees, that designer he'd laid off, reported him out of spite. Apparently, she'd been asked to falsify some expense reports and refused. When Ethan fired her for not being a team player, she made copies of everything and mailed them straight to the IRS, complete with a detailed letter explaining every shady thing she'd seen. And Ethan, being Ethan, ignored the IRS letters, thinking they'd just go away. They didn't. Now he was facing criminal charges for tax evasion, back taxes estimated around $180,000, penalties that could double that, possible prison time, and the complete collapse of his company and reputation. And somehow, according to my parents, this was my problem to solve. The calls came one after another. Mom sobbing about how her baby might go to prison, Dad trying to sound authoritative, but mostly sounding terrified. Even Ethan's new business partner called me. Yeah, turns out he'd brought someone else in as a partner after cutting me out. Funny how that worked. They were all practically begging me to help. Even my uncle, my dad's brother, who I barely know, called me. "Marcus, I know you and Ethan have had your issues, but this is family. We need to rally around him." I let every call go to voicemail for a day. I needed time to process. My first reaction was satisfaction. Karma's a bitch, and Ethan was finally getting what he deserved. But underneath that, it was complicated. This was still my brother, the kid I'd grown up with, the guy I'd once trusted enough to hand over my entire savings to. But then I remembered his face in that office 2 years ago. The smug confidence, the coldness when he said, "It's business, Marcus." The complete lack of remorse, the way he looked me in the eye and stole from me. Fag him. Finally, I called my dad back. "What exactly do you want from me?" I asked. "We need you to help Ethan get his finances in order," he said. "You understand this stuff. You could fix his books, help him deal with the IRS, maybe even testify as a character witness." I actually laughed. "You want me to work for free to save the company he stole from me?" "Marcus, don't be dramatic. Nobody stole anything. He's going to pay you back that money." "It's been 2 years, I snapped. "I haven't seen a single dollar, and this is bigger than old grievances." "Your golden boy might go to prison. Do you understand that? Federal prison." "Good." Silence. Long, heavy silence. "You don't mean that," my dad finally said. "I absolutely mean that," I said. Ethan made his choices. He chose to cut me out of the company I helped build. He chose to commit tax fraud. Those are his problems, not mine. "What happened to family looking out for each other?" he asked quietly. I almost laughed. "You mean like how you looked out for me when Ethan screwed me? Like how you took his side when he stole my investment? Like how you knew he was planning to cut me out and you encouraged it? That kind of family loyalty?" "We didn't take sides. You literally told me I was being unreasonable for expecting him to honor our deal. You told him he was making the right business decision, so miss me with this family crap. Family is supposed to work both ways." My mom grabbed the phone. "Marcus, please, we'll pay you, whatever you want. Just help him. He's your brother." He stopped being my brother when he looked me in the eye and stole from me. When he spent my $75,000 on fancy offices and BMW leases while telling me he'd pay me back. When he used the systems I built to make millions while giving me nothing. This is different. This is serious. So was what he did to me. The difference is, I didn't have the IRS to protect me. I just had to eat the loss and move on. So you're just going to let him go to prison? I'm going to let him face the consequences of his choices. Something you should have taught him to do about 20 years ago. Then I hung up and blocked their numbers. But it didn't stop. They started calling from other people's phones. Relatives I hadn't talked to in years suddenly reaching out. I even got a Facebook message from my high school girlfriend's mom somehow. The whole family phone tree was working overtime, trying to guilt me into saving Ethan. The worst part was when my mom showed up at my office, actually showed up in the middle of a workday, causing a scene in the lobby. Crying, begging, telling my receptionist how her ungrateful son was abandoning his brother in his darkest hour. I had security escort her out. I felt like a complete asshole doing it. But what choice did I have? That night, I sat down and wrote an email. Sent it to every single member of my extended family. I laid out the entire story, in painful, undeniable detail. The deal Ethan and I made, the $75,000 I invested, attached the bank statements as proof. The 2 years of labor I put in, attached the time logs I'd kept. How he cut me out, attached screenshots of our text conversations where he refused to even discuss the partnership. How my parents knew and supported it, attached the dates and details of those conversations. Then I wrote, I have built my own successful business without any help from the family that betrayed me. My company did 8 figures in revenue last year. I employ 23 people who depend on me. I have clients who trust me. I built all of this after losing everything to someone who promised to be my partner. Ethan's legal problems are the direct result of his own illegal choices. He committed tax fraud. He ignored the IRS. He broke the law because he thought the rules didn't apply to him. Those are his consequences to face. I will not be helping him. I will not be consulting for him. I will not be bailing him out. If anyone contacts me about this again, I will cut them off completely. This is not a negotiation. This is not up for discussion. This is final. For those of you who think I'm being heartless, I'd ask you to consider, where was this family when Ethan stole from me? Where were these calls begging for fairness, loyalty, and help? You can't demand I be the bigger person when nobody asked him to be even a mediocre person. I'm done. Leave me alone. The responses were mixed. Some family members apologized, said they hadn't known the full story. Others doubled down, sent nasty messages about me being vindictive and cruel. One cousin even called me Satan, which was a bit dramatic, but whatever. The best response came from my uncle, my dad's brother, the one who'd called me first. He sent a private email. Marcus, I owe you an apology. I didn't know the details. Your father painted a very different picture of what happened. After reading your email, I looked into it and talked to some people. You're right. They've been enabling Ethan his entire life and expecting you to clean up his messes. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not just for building a successful business, but for having the spine to stand up to this family's bullshit. We could all use more of that. If you ever want to grab a beer without the family drama, let me know. That email meant more than he probably realized. And then, today, the hits kept coming. I got a call from a lawyer representing Ethan's company. Very professional, very carefully worded. He wanted to make a formal offer. If I agreed to consult on fixing their books and dealing with the IRS situation, they'd pay me $200,000 up front and give me 10% equity in the company. I sat there, listening to the whole pitch. Let the lawyer finish his carefully prepared speech. Then I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Let me make sure I understand, I said. 2 years ago, Ethan told me there was no room for partners, said my work had been outgrown, refused to honor our handshake deal for 50-50 equity. And now, suddenly, now that he's facing criminal charges, there's magically room for me to be a partner? For 10%? After I built the foundations of his entire company? The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, I understand there's some history here, but we're prepared to be very generous. Here's my counteroffer, I cut in. When Ethan's company goes under, and it will, I'll buy his client list for 50 cents on the dollar. I'll hire his best employees and treat them with actual respect. And Ethan can spend his court-ordered community service thinking about how he could have had a partner who had his back instead of an adv. He made those choices because he thought he was smarter than the IRS and above the rules that apply to everyone else. My only regret is that it took me almost 30 years to realize I don't owe my family anything just because we share DNA. That being related doesn't entitle you to someone's time, money, or forgiveness. That sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and let people face their own consequences. So that's where things stand. Ethan's company is circling the drain. The IRS investigation is moving forward. My parents are having daily meltdowns. Half my extended family thinks I'm a hero for standing up to decades of golden child bullshit. The other half thinks I'm a monster for abandoning my brother in his time of need. And for everyone asking in the comments, yeah, I get it. I know this sounds cold. Maybe it is. But I'm tired of being the person who sacrifices everything while everyone else gets to fail upward with no consequences. Ethan had every advantage growing up. He was the favorite, the golden child. He got the attention, the support, the second chances. My parents even mortgaged their house so he could go to college. Every time he screwed up, they gave him endless patience. He got my $75,000, my labor, my trust. And what did I get? Student loans, indifference, lectures about being too serious, and a betrayal that cost me years of my life. So no, I'm not helping. I'm done being the safety net for people who would never do the same for me. It's been 3 weeks since my original post, and things have reached their inevitable conclusion. Ethan's company officially filed for bankruptcy last Friday. The IRS penalties, legal fees, and client exodus were just too much. The company's being liquidated to pay back taxes and legal bills. Ethan himself took a plea deal. No prison time, but 2 years probation, $250,000 in fines and back taxes, 500 hours of community service, permanent surrender of all professional licenses. He's also banned from serving as a corporate officer for the next 10 years. In short, his career in business consulting? Over. My parents drained about $80,000 from their retirement trying to keep his company afloat and pay for lawyers. They're not broke, but they definitely won't be retiring comfortably anymore. Mom called to tell me this, like it was supposed to make me feel guilty. It didn't. They made their choice. 3 of Ethan's former employees reached out to me about jobs. I hired 2 of them. Both are great workers who'd just been stuck in a toxic environment. They're thriving at my company now. As for the rest of the family, I grabbed coffee with my uncle last week. He told me he's been watching this golden child dynamic play out since we were kids, and he's glad I finally stood up for myself. Said he wishes he'd spoken up years ago. Everyone else? Still giving me the silent treatment. And honestly, I'm fine with it. My company's doing better than ever. We're opening a Seattle office next quarter. Annual revenue is tracking toward $12 million. I promoted Jessica to COO to help manage the growth. Meanwhile, Ethan's back on LinkedIn posting about the entrepreneurial journey and lessons learned from failure. I scrolled past without even finishing the post, but I'm sure it's packed with the usual inspirational nonsense that conveniently skips over the whole tax fraud thing. The lesson here is simple. Walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. Build your own success, protect your peace, and never ever go into business with family without an ironclad legal contract. If someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I'm done with this chapter. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Hope your families are a little less dysfunctional than mine. Peace out. Oh, and apparently YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. So if you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up.